Welcome back to Anime T23, where we dive into the worlds and what-if scenarios of your favorite anime. Today, we embark on a journey through the hidden feelings and untold moments of the ninja world. Imagine a world where Naruto, our spirited hero, recognizes the deep and unspoken affection of the shy and caring Hinata much earlier than in the original timeline. How would this revelation shape their lives, their battles, and their bonds? How would it influence Naruto's path to becoming Hokage and Hinata's own growth as a kunoichi? Sit tight as we explore the twists and turns of this alternate reality, where hearts are unveiled and destinies are altered. Let's dive in. What if Naruto recognizes Hinata's feelings eerie Part 2? Naruto. Hinata bolted upright, throwing the bed sheets off her body. Based on the faint sunlight that came in through the window, it was early in the morning. Faint sounds of far-off construction filtered through the window as the villagers continue with the rebuilding. The noise echoed slightly around the white hospital room, but its occupants paid it no heed. Lady Hinata, Niji, who had been sitting in one of the room's chairs, sound asleep, had been startled awake by his cousin's yell. He quickly moved to her side as she began to cry, repeating Naruto's name over and over. "Sure, it's all right, Hinata." Niji placed his hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down. He recoiled in surprise when she slapped his hand away and glared at him. Hinata had never hit anyone outside of training or the battlefield, and it shocked Niji greatly. "How can it be all right?" Hinata sniffed, sobs still racking her body. She dropped her gaze from Niji, placing her face into her hands. "Naruto is gone," she choked out, almost as if she didn't believe the words. Niji smiled at her softly, realizing the cause of her distress. He had been informed by Rokuro that this might be the case, but he had forgotten in the heat of the moment. "Lady Hinata, Naruto is fine. See for yourself." Hinata's head whipped around at his words, her hair fanning out behind her. Niji pulled back the curtain next to her bed, revealing Naruto. The blonde was hugging his pillow tightly, drooling slightly as he slept. Hinata's heart lifted, and she flew out of her bed. Niji couldn't get out of the way fast enough, and the Hyuga was bowled over as Hinata forced her way past him. He ended up face down on the tile floor, cursing his method of revelation. Hinata literally threw herself on Naruto, arms wrapping around his neck. Tears continued to flow down her face as she embraced the blonde. But from the huge smile she wore, it was obvious they weren't from sadness any longer. Naruto had been dreaming peacefully of Hinata feeding him ramen when he was awoken by the need to breathe. He looked down and couldn't help but smile as he saw Hinata's form sprawled on his own. However, he still needed oxygen, and the need for air soon overpowered his desire to hold Hinata. "Hi, ta." Naruto managed to get out, tapping her shoulder. She looked into his eyes, and upon seeing the blue coloring in his cheeks, loosened her grip on his neck. She giggled as he took a huge breath in, his color slowly returning to normal. As soon as his breathing returned to normal, he grinned at the girl laying on top of him and placed his hands on her lower back. "Naruto, I'm so glad to see you," Hinata yelled excitedly, burying her face in his chest as the memory of the genjutsu she had been placed under came back. "They put me under a genjutsu. I thought you had been—" She didn't finish the thought, as the pain she had felt came back to her. "Hey, it's okay," Naruto said softly. "I'm not going anywhere. I promised that I would protect you, and I can't do that if I'm dead." He grinned at Hinata, and she lifted her face up. That grin always made her heart soar, and instantly all of her sorrows melted away. She smiled at him, then snuggled closer, intent on staying with him for as long as possible. "It's nice to see you smiling, Lady Hinata," Niji said. While he had accepted their relationship and was happy for Hinata, he still felt uneasy about the two of them. He had the utmost respect for Naruto, and knew he loved Hinata just as deeply as she loved him, but he was a pervert, and he had to make sure he didn't take advantage of Hinata. "I'm also glad to see that you are unharmed. Naruto, this is the second time you have saved my cousin's life. I cannot fathom any way to repay you. Hinata, to her credit, didn't blush as deeply as one would have expected when Niji reaffirmed his presence. She simply smiled at her cousin and made no move to get off Naruto. Naruto laughed nervously, uncomfortable with Niji's thanks for doing what he simply thought was his job. Hey, it's no problem, Niji. Besides, he added, a solemn look crossing his face, without Hinata, my life wouldn't really be worth living, so I kind of saved my own life to you know. His tone was completely serious, and everyone in the room knew he meant it. Hinata turned crimson at his admission. Did she really mean that much to him? It was Naruto, though, and Hinata had no doubts about the sincerity of his words. Her heart swelled. She had never loved him more than she did at this precise moment. She renewed her tight hold on him, burying her face in his chest. Hinata felt like she could stay in his arms forever, and she wanted to prolong this moment for as long as possible. Naruto was surprised as Hinata's hold on him tightened once more, but since he could breathe this time, he made no move to stop her. Her body pressed against his, and Naruto had a slight struggle to push down his arousal, but otherwise he simply felt his love for the girl in his arms with each heartbeat. The room remained quiet for several more minutes. Naruto and Hinata simply held each other, and Niji sat in his chair, averting his eyes to give them some privacy. While he would prefer to be outside of the room, Hayashi's orders rang through his head and he stayed put. He let out a sigh of relief, however, when his loud companion of several hours barged into the room. Yo, Niji, I got us the drinks, Rokuro practically yelled. Here you, Naruto. Hinata, you guys are finally up. The eldest Uzumaki had been in the room all night, along with Niji, and had been chatting away with the Hyuga. The two had already become friends when Rokuro had distracted him 2 days ago, but they had taken the time to swap stories and laughs throughout the night. Even though the Hyuga was quite proud and proper, he felt at ease around Rokuro in a way that no one else besides Tenten had seen. They shared a bond as elder cousins, and had become fast friends. However, Niji was irritated that he had chosen to be so loud. Rokuro, he said, a hint of annoyance in his voice. This is a hospital, so you should keep your voice Rokuro. Naruto shouted, drowning out Niji. Hey, what's up? Nothing much, little cuz. Just trying to get that stick out of Niji's ass all night. Rokuro responded with an easy grin. Niji simply stared at him, eyes and mouth open wide in shock. To his eternal mortification, Naruto, Rokuro, and even Hinata all broke out in laughter. He hung his head in shame, while secretly plotting his revenge. Ha! So what else is up? Rokuro let his laughter die, switching into concerned older sibling mode. Are you guys both feeling okay? Anything bothering you? No, I'm fine. Naruto responded, still grinning at the joke. What about you, Hinata? I'm doing very well. Hinata replied, stifling a giggle as she glanced at her mortified cousin. Thank you for asking, Rokuro-sensei. Now, little Hina, Rokuro scolded. I already told you I'm no teacher. I just like torturing kids. He added with a grin. Hey, I'm no kid. Naruto pouted. I'm 16 and a ninja. That means I'm an adult. Naruto's pouts earned a giggle from Hinata. Oh yeah? You don't qualify as an adult in my eyes until you're 18 and over 5'2", shorty. Rokuro mocked. Hey, I'm 5'5". Look, I already reach your shoulder. Yeah, that's because you're standing on your tiptoes, idiot. The two cousins continued to bicker back and forth, with Naruto trying to make his cousin stand still so they could compare heights, and Rokuro standing on his toes to make himself taller every time Naruto tried. Hinata simply sat on the bed, watching and giggling at their antics. While she still wanted to hold Naruto, she enjoyed watching him get worked up almost as much. The bickering was soon interrupted by Niji, who placed his hands on each Uzumaki's shoulder. That's enough, Niji said sternly. Now, unless you two quiet down, I will be forced to use my gentle fist to do it for me. Naruto gulped and backed up, while Rokuro simply pouted. Niji, you're no fun when the others are around. Why can't you tell dirty jokes like last night? The redhead whined. Naruto and Hinata's jaws dropped, and their eyes popped out of their skulls. Niji managed to look embarrassed and furious at the same time, glaring daggers at Rokuro. Rokuro simply grinned, then yelped as he ducked the palm strike directed at him. Oh, so you want to spar, huh? Rokuro taunted, dodging each Byakugan-directed strike. Well, race you to the training grounds. Rokuro disappeared. After several seconds of searching with his Byakugan, Niji took off in hot pursuit of his opponent. Naruto and Hinata simply stared at the empty doorway, still not quite sure what they had heard. Did he say that Niji cracks dirty jokes? Naruto asked, still unsure if he had heard correctly. Hinata simply nodded, still dumbfounded by the turn of events. Never in her life had she seen Niji get so flustered and cracking dirty jokes. Surely Rokuro had been joking, but the embarrassed look on Niji's face said otherwise, and Hinata knew plenty about embarrassment. Naruto scratched the back of his head, wondering at Niji's newly found personality. He shook it off, turning his thoughts back to Hinata. Hey, Hinata! The serious note in his voice made Hinata look at him, instead of trying to figure out if her cousin had ever spied on him with his Byakugan. When Naruto was sure he had her attention, he continued his questioning. Last night, those guys that tried to kidnap you, did you know them? Wait, they tried to kidnap me? Hinata asked, surprised at the news. Naruto simply looked at her, confused, before he remembered that she had been knocked out until this morning. Naruto climbed onto the bed, putting his back against the far wall. He spread his legs and opened his arms in an invitation. Hinata obliged, her head still processing the new information and trying to come up with logical scenarios. Her body settled in between Naruto's legs, leaning her back up against his chest and putting her head on his shoulder. Naruto wrapped his arms around her waist gently, pressing her against him. Once they were comfortable, Naruto proceeded to explain what had happened the night before. Hinata listened to the story calmly, her face a stoic mask. Inside, her emotions were running rampant. Her first reaction was anger at the actions of Shirawaka, then fear and worry as she heard about his transformation, before finally settling on pride and love for him as he described his and Rokuro's success. She was a bit worried about his anger and beating of Sanjo, but she knew he had to let out his emotions every now and then. Even if being angry meant the Nine Tails came out, then it was okay as long as he didn't get carried away. Naruto left out one crucial piece of information, however. He was still scared of his vision, while under the Genjutsu. He thought that it was very possible if he would have given completely to the Nine Tails, allowing it to run rampant. The very thought of those actions terrified him, and he resolved to ask the Toads if there was a way he could control it. He would master the Nine Tails, no matter what it took. For his friends, for his family, for his village, and most of all, for Hinata. Thank you, Naruto, Hinata said softly, her emotions almost overwhelming her. Tears began to fall down her cheeks as she realized that Naruto would stop at nothing to protect her. Just thank you. Naruto smiled at her, then became instantly worried as he felt her tears on his arms. He spun her around so that they were staring into each other's eyes. Hinata, what's wrong? Is this about the Nine Tails? I promise you, I won't ever let it end. He was cut off as Hinata kissed him. All of Naruto's worry seeped out of him as he felt the depths of her emotions in the kiss. He poured all of his own love, pride, and confidence in her into the kiss. They simply kissed, neither taking it any farther, as their lips conveyed the depths of their emotions. Eventually, they both broke apart for air, their lips trembling with emotion. Naruto leaned his forehead on Hinata's, and they simply stared into each other's eyes for several moments before they heard a slight knock on the door. Sorry, guys, but I came here to check up on you, Sakura said apologetically. The kunoichi was standing in the door in her nurse's uniform. She had come a few moments ago to find them kissing, but they were so cute to her that she didn't want to interrupt. To her eternal surprise, Hinata didn't even blush at the interruption. The Hyuga simply twisted around and planted herself firmly back into Naruto's chest. "That's okay, Sakura. We know you're just concerned for your friends," Hinata said happily. "But both of us are fine. Right, Naruto?" Naruto was mildly surprised that she hadn't blushed at being caught in such an intimate position. While he missed how cute it made her look, he knew that it was a habit that she had best grow out of, considering it came from her former low confidence. He turned his attention back to gaping Sakura. "Yeah, we're okay, Sakura. Can we leave the hospital soon?" Naruto asked curiously. He was hungry, and some Ichiraka ramen would really hit the spot. But he knew better than to try sneaking past Sakura, or at least doing so while she was standing in the doorway. Sakura shook her head, shaking off the surprise she had felt at Hinata's actions. The pink-haired medic looked at her clipboard, frowning as she read the last page of Naruto's medical report. She slowly reached behind her back, pressing a special button on a pager given to all the nurses at the hospital. "In a bit, Naruto. You guys should relax here for a while." The girl had a smile on her face, and she slowly pulled the door behind her shut. "Why don't you tell me what happened while you're here?" "Oh man, Sakura, you're not going to believe it. Hinata and I were training with Rokuro. Then we went home." Naruto began his story, babbling animatedly while waving his arms about. Hinata merely leaned back on his chest contentedly, allowing him to tell the story since she had been unconscious for most of it. This last thought caused Hinata to frown slightly. She had been taken out of action in moments, doing nothing at all to contribute. This depressed her, and some of her self-confidence faded away. Her inability to see through the genjutsu had caused her to become a burden, and she once again had to rely on Naruto to save her. She felt weak and vulnerable all of a sudden, and shifted uncomfortably in Naruto's embrace. Hinata blushed furiously, her position in Naruto's lap becoming apparent to her, and she quickly stood up. Naruto halted his story, wondering why Hinata was standing up so suddenly. When she flashed him a quick smile, he became very worried. He could tell that she was hurting, and that she was attempting to hide it behind a smile. He knew, because he was a master at hiding pain behind a grin, and he grasped her hand as she tried to move away. "Hinata, what's wrong?" Naruto asked, the tenderness and concern in his voice obvious. "It's nothing, Naruto," she stammered, her old habit returning with her dip in confidence. "I just want tea to get something tea to dr drink." "Hinata, please talk to me," Naruto pleaded. Hinata hesitated, before Sakura grabbed her and pulled her over to the door. "Actually, that's a great idea, Hinata. Can you go grab us some water while I talk to Naruto?" Sakura asked, clearly hiding something. Hinata, suspicious of Sakura's motives, paused for a moment. However, her polite nature reasserted itself, and she nodded her agreement before moving out the door. "Hey!" Naruto said loudly. "Sakura, I wanted to talk to Hinata about something." "You can talk to her later, Naruto. Right now I need to tell you something." Naruto recoiled a bit, surprised by Sakura's actions. The pink-cat was fidgeting with something behind her back, and she wouldn't meet his gaze. To Naruto, she appeared to be acting the exact same way she had when they had met in the Land of Iron. His eyes narrowed, curious and cautious at the same time. "Okay, Sakura, what is it? And why did you make Hinata go get us something to drink, instead of doing it yourself? You're a nurse here after all. Can't you talk to me with her around?" Sakura sighed to herself. There was going to be no easy way to do this, and Hinata certainly didn't want to be around when it happened. "Well, Naruto, I really hate to do this when Hinata is so close by, but I need to get this off my chest." Sakura walked closer to Naruto, bending over to him and grabbing his hands in hers. "Your vaccinations aren't up to date, so you need a shot." Naruto's eyes popped out of his head at the unexpected words. He started to struggle, but Sakura quickly pinned his arms to his side and straddled him, trapping him between her and the bed. Even with her immense strength, she struggled to hold the blonde down. As she pinned him, Several medical ninja crashed through the windows, not bothering to open them. They all pulled out tranquilizer guns, taking aim at Naruto. Naruto screamed and trashed as dozens of needles pierced his upper right arm, injecting the sleep-inducing drug into his body. Sakura was thrown off him, crashing into the wall on the opposite side of the room. Naruto tore the needles out of his body, but it was a futile effort. His mind began to haze over, and his eyelids drooped before he found himself unconscious. Hinata had been walking back to her and Naruto's room when she heard his terrified scream. She instantly dropped the tray she had been carrying, sprinting the rest of the way to the hospital room. Her Byakugan activated, and she saped at what she saw. Naruto was surrounded by people whose chakra she couldn't recognize. Sakura was lying up against the wall, and Naruto was knocked out. She sped up, thinking that he was in trouble, and was determined to rescue him. The lead medical ninja pulled out the requested syringe, preparing to plunge it into Naruto's arm, when Hinata leapt into the room. In a flash, she had disabled enough of each of the enemy shinobi's chakra points to make each one unconscious. Letting out a victorious cry, she had saved Naruto and Sakura all by herself. She failed to notice the fact that the enemy were shinobi from her own village, or that Sakura was Hinata took a deep breath in before completely unharmed. Still, her self-confidence soared. Sakura sat up, opening her eyes to the strangest sight she had ever seen. Hinata was cheering. Naruto was unconscious, and all of her backup was lying on the floor, also unconscious. She quickly stood up, grabbing the fallen needle. Ignoring Hinata's questions, she quickly strode over to Naruto and injected him with the vaccine. His eyes snapped open, and he looked at her with hurt and betrayal before promptly passing out again. She ignored the look, slumping to the ground, exhausted. At that moment, a tired but smiling Niji and grinning Rokuro chose that moment to enter the hospital room. Both had had an intense spar, and neither could move without much difficulty. Two pairs of eyes, one red and one white, widened in shock at the state of the room. Recovering his voice first, Niji directed his question to the only occupant that seemed to be awake and cheering at the fact. "Lady Hinata, what is going on?" Naruto and Hinata walked slowly through the village, heading towards Naruto's apartment. They were both quite tired, neither having fully recovered from the training yesterday or the events of last night, but the two young shinobi were happy to be with each other. Both Naruto and Hinata's discussions and confessions earlier that day had deepened their love, and they walked hand in hand. After their little mishap in the hospital, they had been discharged by a grumbling Sakura. Surprisingly, she hadn't hit Naruto for his troubles during the shot, but the blonde was positive he was going to pay for it later. Hinata had been crestfallen when she had realized she had stopped several Leaf Medical Ninja, but took pride in the fact they were all at least Chunin level, even if they were on her side. This gave her back some of the confidence she had displayed earlier, though not all of it. Both Naruto and Hinata were looking forward to a day of rest, even if it was going to be quite short, considering it was already 3 p.m. However, they planned on spending the day together, and that made the time seem so much better to them. They mounted the steps to Naruto's apartment, having already eaten at Ichiraku's. Naruto inserted his key into the lock, unlocking the door and pulling it open. The pair jumped backward in surprise at the loud shout that greeted them. Surprise! The yell came from 11 throats. All of their friends had gathered in Naruto's apartment, waiting for him and Hinata to return. All of the faces were smiling, and they all laughed as Naruto fell on his butt in surprise, taking Hinata with him. Naruto stood up, bewildered at the presence of his friends. His mouth, disconnected from his conscious thoughts, shouted out the first thing that came to mind. "What the hell are you guys doing in my apartment?" His yell was met with a gloved fist as Sakura smashed him into the wall opposite his door. Hinata ran over to see if he was okay, while the rest of the group simply backed away from Sakura slightly. "You idiot!" She ranted as Hinata helped Naruto to his feet. "We came here to throw you a party. You know, for saving the village in Hinata. But how did you get into my apartment?" Naruto asked, worried that they had been able to break into his apartment so easily. A small shiver passed through the girl under his arm who was helping support him. Naruto looked at her in disbelief. "Hinata, did you tell them where my spare key was?" he asked, a slightly hurt tone in his voice. Hinata nodded shyly, blushing at the question. Sakura had approached her while Naruto was still asleep from his shot, asking about his spare key. Hinata had been puzzled until the kunoichi explained her idea, the Hyuga nodding violently in acceptance. She still felt guilty about revealing its hiding place, though. "Ha! That old trick," Sakura scoffed. "Naruto, hiding your key in a fake rock only works if there are a lot of rocks around, not when there's just one sitting right in front of your door." Naruto's jaw dropped, and Hinata giggled slightly at his expression. He looked down at her with hurt in his eyes for the second time in as many minutes, and she immediately hugged him closer to her. "Really, Naruto? Did you really think any of us couldn't figure that out in a couple of minutes?" Kiba scoffed, amazed by the blonde's stupidity. Any idiot would have known it was in the rock. "I mean, there's just one rock sitting in the middle of the hall." "Oh, just shut up, Kiba," Ino interjected. "All right, Naruto's an idiot, and we all know where his spare key is. Can we start this party now?" "Yes. We must all let our youth shine as we go through the youthful actions of partying." Lee's eyes burned as he said this, bringing his fist up and clenching it in front of his face. "Guy-sensei told me that a party was an excellent idea, and that we should let the flames of youth dash." Lee was cut off by a smack from Tenten. "We get it, Lee," she murmured irritably. Turning to Naruto and Hinata, she smiled at the couple. What he was trying to say was that all of our sensei thought that this was a good idea, so they helped set it up. "Now, come on, let's have some fun." "Hell yes," Rokuro roared, and everyone snickered at the redhead's enthusiasm. He was so similar to Naruto in some ways that everyone couldn't help but like him. The Uzumaki clan had a strange charisma, and apparently Naruto wasn't the only one to get it. "Come on, I bought the sake for this. Can't let it go to waste." Naruto and Hinata simply smiled, overjoyed that their friends cared about them enough to throw a party, simply because they were both okay. Neither offered any resistance as Sakura grabbed their arms and dragged them inside. Everything in the world seemed to be perfect, and they couldn't be happier. 00000 Naruto flopped onto his bed, sighing in contentment. The party had long since been over, but it had been great. They simply sat around talking, drinking, and eating, having a wonderful time with each other. Naruto grinned and giggled as he recalled some of the antics during the party. "What's so funny?" a soft voice asked. Naruto turned his head to see Hinata standing in the doorway to his bathroom, one of his shirts covering her body. Niji had grudgingly agreed to allow her to spend the night, with Rokuro's assistance in their arguments. He had warned Naruto in an aside, but the blonde had heard it all before and simply reminded Niji that he had promised not to take advantage of her. Not that she would mind if he did. "I was just thinking about what happened with Akamaru." Naruto's grin widened as he recalled the memory. Hinata giggled, which slowly turned into a full laugh as she too remembered what had happened. She walked forward, trying to stifle her laughter, but it only served to make her laugh harder. She fell on the bed, clutching her sides as Naruto joined her. After several minutes, they finally calmed down enough to speak. "We shouldn't laugh at Kiba," Hinata giggled. "He got hurt when he tried that." Naruto chuckled, still trying to bring his laughter under control. "I know," but seeing Akamaru's face, and when Kiba hit the wall, Naruto burst into a fit of giggles, which in turn caused Hinata to start laughing as well. They calmed down much faster this time, as their eyes met and they lost themselves in each other's gaze. Naruto couldn't believe his luck. Not for the first time. He felt unworthy of Hinata. She was beautiful, graceful, intelligent, and strong. He had no idea why she chose him out of all the people she could have had, but he certainly wasn't going to complain. He loved spending time with her, loved talking with her. Just being in her presence was intoxicating to him. He understood her, and she understood him, in a way that no one else ever had before or ever would again. Hinata felt the exact same way. For years, she had admired Naruto and had a crush on him. And even though they'd been seeing each other for a month and dating for the past 2 weeks, she still felt like it was a dream. For so long, she had been chasing after him, wanting to be with him, and now she finally had him. She could hardly believe her luck. The couple smiled at one another before leaning in for a soft, chaste kiss. Neither of them had the energy to take things further, and they settled for simply cuddling in bed. Naruto wrapped his arm around Hinata's waist, pulling her close to him. They touched foreheads, not exchanging words. They simply conveyed their feelings for each other through their eyes, not even breaking their gaze, as both their eyelids drooped as the night wore on. Eventually, sleep claimed them, and although it was peaceful for her, the same could not be said for Naruto. The blonde kept his eyes shut, trying to escape from the inevitable, but a deep growling set off vibrations in the water and prevented him from leaving. He sighed in defeat, opening his eyes and sitting up. He was trapped in what appeared to be a sewer. Granted, it didn't smell like one, but it felt dank and depressing. In front of him was a massive gate, with a large piece of paper that had an extraordinarily complex seal written on it, keeping the gate shut. Naruto shuddered at the sight of it, the last time he had been here flashing through his mind. "So, you finally decided to heed my summons, boy." Red eyes flashed behind the bars, and Naruto's tenant stepped close to them, revealing his entire body. The nine-tailed fox glared down at Naruto in a mixture of hatred and contempt. "What summons? What do you want, fox?" Naruto questioned. He hadn't heard or seen from the Nine-Tails since his battle with Pain, and he honestly had been enjoying it. The demon had plagued him with nightmares as a child, and he still resented it for that reason. "Have you not been paying attention at all? I have been calling to you ever since you began your relationship with that damn girl." "Huh." Naruto was thoroughly confused. "You mean Hinata? That's what you want to talk about." "Why? Because, boy, I want to know what your plans are with your little vixen." The fox's voice dripped with contempt, and he glared at Naruto. "Haven't you been paying attention at all, Fox? I've told her this so many times lately. I love her, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with her," Naruto said. His conviction was obvious, and the fox shuddered as his host's feeling trickled through to him. "You fool. Your relationship with this girl, or any other, will lead to nothing but misery. I suggest you dash what?" Naruto practically screeched at the fox. His surprise was quickly replaced by anger, and he smashed his fist against the cage. "What do you have against me and Hinata being together? Why do you want me to give her up?" "Fool! Who said I had anything against the girl? I told you that any relationship would lead to nothing but misery." The Nine-Tails roared thunderously. It had intended to be gentle with Naruto, but now its patience had worn thin. "Why?" Naruto shot back. "Hinata loves me, and I love her. How can that possibly lead to misery? You are a fool, boy. You have become too attached to this girl. She is pathetic and weak, a poor excuse for a shinobi." The Nine-Tails growled. His anger and hatred was getting the best of him, and he couldn't keep himself on track. "You shut your mouth. Hinata is a great ninja. She is strong, kind, generous, and the nicest person I have ever met. So you can shove it, you stupid fox. She's probably stronger than me." The Nine-Tails was taken aback for a moment, before his anger retuned even greater than ever. He roared, grasping at the bars. "Insolent little brat. Your feelings have clouded your judgment. Have you forgotten what happened when she tried to save you?" Naruto detected a slight bit of concern in the fox's ravings, and it stopped him dead. Since when did the fox ever care about him? He let go of its cage and looked at him with suspicion. "What are you trying to say?" He narrowed his gaze as the Nine-Tails' anger subsided, and it looked at him seriously. "What do you care?" "I care, boy, because it affects me too. If you were to pursue this relationship, it would only end badly. For you and me. We are destined to be alone. And any relationship with a female would cause nothing but pain." Naruto felt his hatred rising again, and he clenched his fists. "How do you know?" All you ever feel is hatred. You've made my life nothing but one long nightmare. And now that things are finally getting better for me, you think you can come and ruin it? Go to hell, you bastard. I'm not listening to you anymore. Naruto turned away, resolving to ignore the fox for the rest of the night. He sat down several yards away, thinking about Hinata to drown out the fox's voice. If you pursue a relationship with that girl, she will die. The Nine-Tails stated softly. He didn't want it to come to this, but he had to do it. She is not strong enough to survive being by your side, and this love will only result in her death. In a flash, Naruto was back up against the bars, clutching them tightly. He glared at the Nine-Tails with such hate, even the fox was taken aback. Hinata is strong enough. If you threaten her again, I will kill you. As if you could, boy. Let me show you what will happen if you continue this relationship. If you continue as things are. Before Naruto could react, the Nine-Tails reached down and tapped the center of his forehead, sending a vision straight to his brain. Naruto watched himself, as if he could see and feel everything that he normally would, but from outside of his own body. The scene that greeted him made his stomach churn and bile rise in his throat. Strewn across a ravaged, destroyed landscape were thousands upon thousands of bodies. Each one had been mutilated or ripped apart, and Naruto couldn't recognize a single one, except the one he was holding in his arms. Naruto's heart stopped, and his heart clenched as he looked at the girl in his arms. Hinata was looking at him with love and tenderness, and it tore his heart out. Lodged deep in her body were 3 spikes made of wood, 1 through her stomach and 2 through her chest. Naruto knew from just one glance they were fatal. No, no, Hinata. He reached out and grabbed her face, his mind still reeling in shock. Tears quickly sprang to his eyes, and his breathing quickened. He was vaguely aware of 2 figures moving in front of him, and a huge presence moved closer, but he paid them no heed. It's okay, Naruto, Hinata said weakly. I finally got to save you. All this time, and I wasn't strong enough to stand by your side, to be there for you. You've saved me so many times. Now I finally got to save you. She coughed up a small amount of blood, and Naruto quickly wiped it away. Hinata, please don't leave me. Naruto sobbed out. Please, please don't go. I need you, Hinata, he whispered weakly. Hinata lifted her arm, placing her hand on Naruto's cheek. He grasped it desperately, not ever wanting to let go. I'm sorry, Naruto. Hinata had tears of her own, and her voice was getting weaker by the second. I'm sorry that we can't have our life together, but I have no regrets. I got to love you, and you loved me. Please, for me, promise that you won't blame yourself. I died to protect you, because I love you. I only wish... Hinata's voice faded into nothingness, and Naruto screamed as he saw the life leave her eyes. His heart broke, and he broke down into sobs. Hands pulled her away from him, and he had no power to resist. He heard Sakura behind him, shouting orders, but he paid no attention to her. Hinata was gone. Naruto's vision blurred, and he saw himself standing in front of a gravestone. All of his friends were there, along with Rokuo and Tsunade. They all simply stood there, tears running down their faces, holding on to one another as they mourned their lost friend. Naruto didn't say anything to them, but their presence helped with the pain. But they all had their own lives, their own relationships to get back to, and they couldn't be with him all the time. Naruto screamed out in loneliness and sorrow as each one of them faded away, leaving him there to stand on his own. He knelt before the gravestone, all of the sadness and emotion leaving his body. A burning fire sprang up in his stomach, and he felt a feeling he hadn't felt since childhood, a furious, senseless hatred of the world. Naruto's vision blurred again, and he saw himself on the battlefield once more. He could see the power of the Nine-Tails surrounding him, and he felt all of the emotions of the shinobi around him. The biggest one they felt was fear, and all of it was directed at him. He killed the enemy without hesitation, without remorse, and it felt good. Nothing else in the world made up for Hinata's death, But killing every enemy in sight was a good start. But eventually he ran out of enemies to kill. Naruto looked over his shoulder, pain clutching at his heart. The Leaf Village's gate stood behind him, and there was a lone figure watching him fade into the distance. He couldn't handle the pain anymore. Being in the Leaf Village brought too many memories of Hinata, and it was too much for him. He had to get away, had to find something to make the emptiness and sorrow go away. The battlefield was the only place the pain went away, and he was determined to find a new one. But if he couldn't find a new one, he would create one of his own. Naruto stood at the entrance of the Leaf Village, but it wasn't the home he once loved and protected. Instead, it was a place where he let all of his feelings die, save one: hatred. He hated the Leaf Village, hated its people, but most of all, he hated his former friends and family. They had left him alone, had left him when he needed them most, and it was time for them to pay. Naruto felt nothing as he released the Nine Tails, forcing it to go on a rampage throughout the village. He felt nothing as all of his friends and family attacked him, and he killed each and every one of them. His final opponent came as a surprise, but he killed him too. The man he had once considered his brother, the first person he had ever felt a bond with. Even though he had a real family now, this man always held a special place in his heart. Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto felt nothing but relief as he looked upon the remains of the Leaf Village. The memories of his times there, with Rokuro, with Sasuke, with Hinata, all of his friends, were dead and buried. Now, there was nothing left to live for. He held up the kunai, and despite the screams and protests of the Nine Tails, he did nothing to divert its path. It sank into his chest, destroying his empty heart, and he sank into oblivion. Now, Kit, you see why you should not pursue this relationship. You and that girl are not meant to be. If you continue down this path, then nothing but pain awaits. Your life will end in misery and loneliness, as will mine, and the lives of your friends and village will be destroyed. Trust me, Kit, it is best if you end your relationship now. Naruto sank to his knees, despair overwhelming him. He knew the truth behind the Nine Tails' words and vision, and he felt his heart ache from the emptiness it felt. Why me? Why do I have to have these burdens? Do I really have to be alone, have to spend the rest of my life by myself? The Nine Tails felt a pang of regret for showing Naruto what he did. But there was no other way. You are not alone, Kit. You have your cousins. You have your friends. You even have the one-eyed pervert and that old Senju hag. I mean Fox. Can I never have love, like I do with Hinata? Will I ever be able to love someone and have them love me back? Naruto laughed softly before returning to his sorrows. You know what? No. I'm sorry it has to be this way. Our lives are destined to be alone. And if you do not believe me, then I will show you it's just me and you, Kit, and it will always be that way. Naruto scoffed. The demon brat and his fox, eh? What a great life. It is our fate, Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened, not only because the fox used his name, but also because the statement reminded him of a certain Hyuga. Neji had always given in to fate and destiny before, but not Naruto. Naruto had shouted at him and beaten the prodigy until he got the message into his arrogant skull. Smiling ruefully, Naruto thought it was high time he took his own advice. Nice try, Fox, but I'm not buying into that crap. Naruto mocked. You can show me all the visions you want, but I'm not going to give up Hinata. We love each other, and I will stop that fate from coming. Naruto felt all of his old confidence return. Whenever things got tough, you didn't just give up and accept it. You trained harder and got stronger and stopped the bad things from happening. You idiot. You are just going to ignore what I showed you and risk the girl's life just so you can be happy. The fox growled, angry that his host was being so stubborn. Yep, Naruto quipped. Hinata and I are going to be happy together, and I will stop that future from happening. Besides, Hinata would never be happy if I left her, and she would never accept it. So that's that. I won't stop being with Hinata, because she would be just as sad and lonely as me, and I can't accept that. You overestimate your importance." The Nine-Tails mocked. He touched Naruto's forehead once more, sending another vision into his head. "Let me show you what would happen if you were to leave her, and both of you were to survive." 00000 Naruto found himself in the village, strolling through the streets. People called out to him, but he couldn't hear what they were saying. He simply smiled and waved back. Little children ran up to him with various gifts, and he patted them on the heads before accepting. Everyone he came across worshipped him. As he walked, he spotted and waved to several of his friends. The first two he saw were Sakura and Sasuke, with the former cradling what looked suspiciously like a baby. Naruto gaped like a fish before shaking off his surprise to look for the next group of friends. The next few of his friends that he saw were Tenten, Neji, and Lee. Tenten was leaning on Neji's shoulder with her arm around his waist, and Neji held her close with an arm around her shoulder. Lee was animatedly talking about something while the two listened. Tenten had a fake smile on her face, while Neji looked at him with open annoyance. Lee finished his talk before racing off to parts unknown, while the couple simply sighed and walked after him. Naruto shook his head in amusement before stopping dead. In the barbecue restaurant across the street, Choji was actually giving some of his food to Ino, who laughed and leaned in for a kiss. Shikamaru was sitting across from them, being scolded by an angry Temari while he simply nodded and appeared to listen. Noticing Naruto, the shadow user gave him a wink before pecking Temari on the lips. Naruto burst out laughing at the expression on the Sand Shinobi's face before moving on. He spotted Kiba with his sister Hana, and he noted with only slight surprise that Rokuro was with them. His cousin waved at him, one arm around Hana's waist as she and Kiba argued, before the female Inuzuka sent him crashing to the ground. Naruto winced in sympathy before continuing on his path. He looked at his surroundings with interest, and noticing the Hyuga compound quite close to him, he took off at a run. He turned a corner, slowing down as the gates came into view. He nodded at the guard, who he recognized as Hinata's bodyguard Ko, before entering the compound. As he glanced to his right, he stopped dead, sitting on a bench under a tree, half hidden in the shade, staring off into space, was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Her midnight hair was flowing freely down her back, and she was dressed in a fancy kimono. It was a deep lavender with white flowers, and it accentuated her pale skin. Naruto gaped at her beauty before he started to grin, taking a step forward. However, he stopped dead once he heard a voice call out, and Hinata turned towards the unintelligible sound. Another Hyuga came out, wearing white robes similar to Niji's. He had long black hair, and he smiled softly as he looked at Hinata. The Hyuga heiress looked at him with tenderness and a smile of her own, and Naruto's eyes popped at the look on her face. She usually only looked at him with such tenderness. Their next few events caused his heart to shatter and his brain to overload. Firstly, the couple shared a tender kiss which made Naruto seethe with hatred and jealousy. They broke off as a small child came up to them, tears in her eyes. Hinata scooped the girl up into her arms, while the man simply patted her head comfortingly. Naruto stopped in confusion, his brain trying to comprehend what was going on, when he noticed a glint on Hinata's finger. It was a gold wedding band, and the man wore a matching one on his hand. As they shared another kiss, everything clicked into Naruto's head. This was a future where he broke up with Hinata. She was married, quite happily it seemed, and she HD a child. Naruto's heart shattered, and he began to cry as the vision slowly retreated. 00000. That is what will happen in the future if you leave the girl kit. She will move on, and while you will be unhappy and alone, she will have a happy life. Now you have a choice to make. Will you give her up, so that way you both will live and she will find happiness? Or will you be selfish and continue to pursue her, ending both your lives? The choice is yours. Now wake up. There is someone at the door. The Nine-Tails sounded almost regretful and certainly sad, as it roared and ejected Naruto from his slumber, forcing him to wake up. The last thought that Naruto had before waking up was one of sorrow. He had to give Hinata up. There was no doubt in his mind. He couldn't place his happiness above hers, and although it would break his heart, he had to let her go. Naruto's eyes snapped open. He gasped and sat up, the blanket flying off him as he doubled over. Tears ran down his face, and his body trembled as he absorbed the information and visions the Nine Tails had given him. He knew what he had to do, but it didn't make it any easier. He dragged himself out of bed, hearing his door open and muffled conversation before it closed again. Footsteps in the hallway made him panic for a moment. "Naruto?" Rokuro's voice called out. "You up yet, bud?" "Yeah, I'm awake. Just let me put some clothes on, okay?" Naruto managed to speak without letting his tears interfere. The footsteps retreated to the kitchen, and Naruto moved to get dressed. A quick glance at the clock told him it was only 7 in the morning, so he figured that he didn't need to rush. 5 minutes later, Naruto walked into the kitchen fully dressed in his usual outfit. Rokuro and Hinata were sitting at the table, sipping tea and talking when he walked in. He grinned at the two, momentarily forgetting his experience last night as he saw the love of his life. "Hey, Hinata. Hey, Rokuro," he greeted, making his way to Hinata. His lips met hers for a quick moment, stealing a kiss from his girlfriend. Naruto could tell she had already eaten because he vaguely tasted cinnamon on her lips, made all the more obvious since he had just brushed his teeth. The moment Naruto entered the kitchen, Hinata could tell that something was wrong. His eyes had a slightly dull look, and even thought he had washed it away, she could tell he had been crying. But when his face lit up in genuine happiness at the sight of her, the kunoichi decided to let him tell her when he was ready. "Good morning, Naruto. What's up, little bro?" Naruto froze for a minute before looking at Rokuro's grin. A matching grin of his own spread across his face, and his chest filled with warmth. He had never been referred to as a brother, except by Konohamaru, and having someone actually related to you do so was incredible to him. "Not much," he responded happily. "So, do we get to go back to training today? If you and Hinata are up for it," his cousin responded. "But before that happens, I need to go talk with someone first, then we all need to see the Hokage." "Got it." The two younger shinobi nodded. "All right, meet me outside of the Hokage Tower in 20 minutes. See ya." With that, the redhead disappeared, the only sign of his presence a rattling teacup. "I wish he would teach me that," Naruto said enviously, before moving to grab some of the food Hinata had prepared. As he did, he thought of how great it was that she was his girlfriend, and wondered what it would be like to wake up to this every morning. "Remember, Kit, that's never going to happen." Naruto froze, dropping his plate. It fell to the ground and scattering shattered clay everywhere. Hinata jumped at the sound, turning to look at the blonde. She caught a glimpse of pure anguish on his face before he quickly rearranged his features. "Naruto, what's wrong? What happened?" Naruto avoided her gaze, looking at the ground before moving to grab his broom. He hadn't even had one until Hinata had come over and helped him clean, insisting that he not live in a complete pigsty. He quickly cleaned up the remains of the plate before looking back to Hinata. "Nothing's wrong, Hinata. I just slipped. That's all." Naruto grinned at her, putting his hand behind his head. He moved to grab another plate, but a small hand interlocked with his free one. "Naruto, you promised you wouldn't keep secrets. Now, what's wrong?" she asked. He lavened her eyes full of concern. Naruto was a shinobi. He didn't just drop things. There had to be something wrong for him to do something like that. "Hinata, Naruto was about to tell her everything, to break up with her for her safety, but one look in her eyes and he knew he couldn't do it. Not right then, at least. "Listen, I can't tell you what's wrong, not right now, but I promise, I will tell you." "Okay. Okay." Hinata agreed, albeit reluctantly. She wanted to talk about it right then, but he promised he would, so she let it go. "Thanks." Naruto smiled, pushing all of his turmoil out of his head. He turned back to his food, his stomach once again demanding satisfaction. 00000. All right, brace yourselves, kids, Rokuro warned, opening the door to the Hokage's office before being crushed by the chair that came flying out. Naruto and Hinata stared at this twitching body, one with relief and one with concern. After breakfast, Naruto and Hinata had walked to the Hokage tower hand in hand, chatting about their training. Naruto was excited to learn more wind jutsu, and Hinata was equally excited to get stronger. But the nagging doubts about their relationship kept coming up, and along with the Nine Tails' constant pestering, Naruto found it slightly harder to focus. Naruto pushed the fox out of his mind, promising that he would go through with his plan. Just not until later. They had made their way up to the Hokage's office to find Rokuro waiting for them. He had a grim look on his face, having been standing there for several minutes, before warning the couple and ending up half inside the opposite wall. "What is it?" Tsunade screamed. The blonde seemed incredibly agitated for some reason, and her face was twisted into a fearsome expression. Naruto, being pushed from behind by Hinata, peeked around the corner, and Vayne appeared on Tsunade's head. "So it's you? Get in here, Naruto," she ordered, and he quickly obliged, standing at attention in front of her desk. "What is it, Granny?" he asked, tactless as ever. The Hokage, to everyone's surprise, didn't rise to the bait, simply grabbing a piece of paper and slapping it down on her desk. At her gesture, Naruto picked it up and read it, after prying the chair out of the wall and helping the dazed Rokuro to his feet. Hinata came up behind him and read it as well. Being more intelligent than the blonde, she understood it the first time, whereas Naruto had to read it twice. "You're sending me away?" he cried out. The thought of being sent away from the Leaf Village, with a war looming over the horizon, simply baffled him. There was no way in hell he was leaving, no way he was going away and not being able to protect his precious people. "Lady Tsunade, you never said that," Shizen exclaimed. The brunette had been in the room the entire time. However, she had been too frightened by her master's temper to do anything more than cower in a corner. "Wait, hold on. Why are you doing this in the first place?" Rokuro asked. He had no idea about this either, but he figured there must have been a good reason for it. While not on Shikamaru's level, the redhead was fairly intelligent and guessed there was an underlying reason. "I have no choice. This decision was made by the 5 Kage, and I'm the only one who wanted the Jinchuriki to fight with us." Tsunade's shoulders sagged as she recalled the meeting. Even the Kazekage, a former Jinchuriki, had been in favor of making Naruto hide away from the war. "Naruto, you will be traveling to the land of lightning at the end of this week to train with their remaining Jinchuriki, Lord Killer Bee, to master the Nine Tails. But Lady Tsunade, won't that just put Naruto in greater danger?" Hinata spoke up, her concern for Naruto overriding her shyness. "No, this location is very secure," Tsunade assured her, "and he will be escorted by Yamato and Guy. Trust me, Hinata, if I had a choice I wouldn't send him away. Not when we need to protect him. But I have no choice in the matter. In order to preserve our alliance with the other nations, I have to do this." But Naruto trailed off. All of her arguments made sense, but he didn't like the idea of people fighting without him there to protect them. "Grandma Tsunade, I have to fight. Everyone is going to be fighting in this war, so why can't I?" Rokuro laid a hand on his shoulder. "Because, Naruto, you're the reason we're fighting this war." The blonde and his girlfriend looked shocked by this information, and Tsunade looked at him with interest. "I talked to Kakashi, and he told me about the 5 Kage Summit. The only reason that Madara would declare war was that the Kage refused to hand over the tailed beasts, namely you. So if you are Madara's target, then you need to be protected. Not even you can face off against him alone, and we can't risk you getting captured." Why does he want to capture me? He wants to resurrect the 10 Tails, the combination of all of the tailed beasts, Tsunade informed. "So we need to keep you and the 8 Tails away from him at all costs." Besides Naruto, if you were caught, then the same thing that happened to Gaara would happen to you. Naruto's eyes betrayed no hint of fear, but before he could protest any more, Hinata caught his gaze. She looked so afraid that he thought she might burst into tears. Naruto's shoulders sagged, and he mumbled his agreement. Hinata was relieved, and she resolved that she would fight harder than ever to protect her love. Good. Naruto, you have 1 week to prepare. Now get out. I have paperwork to do. Tsunade spat out the words, as if she hated saying the very word involved with the horrendous task. Shizen laughed nervously, and the Leaf Shinobi, along with Rokuro, shuffled out of the room. Okay, now that I got my daily dose of chair to the face, who wants to go train? 00000 Naruto bent double, trying to catch his breath. Rokuro stood up straight, but it was clear that he, too, was completely exhausted. Naruto, Rokuro, and Hinata had been training the rest of the week, about 4 days. Tomorrow, Naruto would leave for the Lightning Country, so the redhead had designed a final exam of sorts for his temporary students. For her part, Hinata had to finish 20 laps as fast as Naruto with her weights on, which, to her own surprise, she had managed to do. Naruto had tried slowing down a bit at first, but Rokuro had caught him and velled at him to go faster. Hinata was unable to move after finishing, but she was so happy that she had done it that she didn't care. For his part, Naruto had to do every single wind jutsu he had learned perfectly, hit at least half of the nerve clusters on a blank dummy, and fight Rokuro. The first 2 parts he did with relative ease, but the last part had been much more difficult. While his strength and speed had improved to the level where he was a match for his cousin, his defense was a little rough. Whereas Rokuro could effortlessly block his younger cousin's attacks, Naruto had a tough time keeping his guard up. It wasn't that he couldn't do it. It was more along the lines of he didn't want to. Your form is great, Naruto, and you're just as strong and fast as I am, Rokuro praised, having finally caught his breath. But you're still too quick to attack. A shinobi must wait for his opponent to make the first move, since doing so means that you're at a disadvantage. I'll let it slide for now, since you're fast and strong enough to easily beat most opponents, but remember to fix it while you're gone. So, do I pass? The blonde heaved out in between breaths. Rokuro led him on, enjoying the look of annoyance on his cousin's face, before nodding. Naruto finally allowed himself to collapse, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he let his exhaustion take over. Looking over at his cousin, he asked the question that had been on his mind all week. Hey, Rokuro. The redhead looked at him, and Naruto kept going. I was wondering, why don't you make Hinata practice her form, or try helping her hit harder? Simple, really. I have no idea what passes for good form in the Gentle Fist, and she doesn't need to hit any harder. Her blows are chakra-enhanced, making them far stronger right off the bat compared to ours. All she needed was the ability to make her chakra last longer, which I have provided, and some more speed. Naruto nodded his understanding of Rokuro's explanation. However, another thought flashed through his mind, and try as he might, he couldn't shake it off. Sighing, he once again asked his cousin what to do. Rokuro? Said cousin sat down, responding to the blonde's question with a simple noise. Do you think Hinata would be better if I broke up with her? I mean, I'm just a Jinchuriki. I'll cause nothing but trouble for her. And what if she gets hurt during the war, trying to protect me? I don't think Okay, that's enough, idiot. Naruto glanced at his cousin, who was standing over his head, glaring at him angrily. Do you really think she would be better off without you? Try thinking before you say stupid things. He kicked Naruto's head lightly, turning to take off his weights and put his shirt back on. He turned back to the blonde, frowning at the expression on his face. Okay, what's wrong with you? You didn't yell at me for kicking you, and you asked about breaking up with Hinata, so spill it. Naruto's face matched Rokuro's own as he frowned. Why does everyone keep asking that? You, Hinata, and even Sakura when I saw her yesterday. There's nothing wrong with me. Really? Your face says otherwise. Rokuro put his hands on his hips, his frown deepening. Even now, when you said Hinata's name, it looked like you were about to cry. I've never even seen you cry, and I put you through hell. So what's the deal already? Naruto opened his mouth to argue, but shut it when he realized it would get him nowhere. Even if they had only known each other 2 weeks, his cousin still read him like an open book. No matter what he said, Rokuro and Hinata would always see through him. It was probably because they both knew about hiding pain with a smile, so he gave up trying to lie and just came out and said it. What was that? I couldn't hear you, Rokuro asked. Naruto started to yell a retort when he realized his cousin was being genuine. I'm going to break up with Hinata. What? Rokuro stood there, his mouth agape and his arms hanging by his sides. Words escaped him, and Naruto was confused by the shout. He hadn't seen Rokuro's mouth move. Craning his neck, Naruto turned a ghostly pale as he saw Hinata standing behind his cousin with Neji and Kiba, a bowl of ramen slowly seeping into the ground beneath her. Her mouth was open, and her lavender eyes glistened with unshed tears. The sight tore Naruto's heart to shreds, and he wanted nothing more than to run over to her and comfort her, to take back what he said. Remember what will happen, kid. Don't lose your nerve now. Naruto steeled himself, convincing himself that this was for the best, opening his mouth to explain himself, but he was interrupted by a roar from Kiba. The Inuzuka rushed forward with a speed that Naruto had never seen before, picking him up and tossing him across the clearing. Pain exploded in the back of his head, and he vaguely heard shouting from Hinata and Neji before being hauled to his feet. Hinata comes to me and Neji, asking us to talk to you, and when we see you, that's what you have to say, Kiba yelled, pinning Naruto against the tree he had hit. Well, you're gonna pay for making her cry. Drawing back his fist, he slammed it into Naruto's jaw. Pain blossomed in his jaw before reaching his brain, causing the blonde to slip into unconsciousness. 00000, you idiot. How are you going to explain yourself now? I'm not. It's better this way. Oh yes. Being knocked unconscious by a dog-loving bastard certainly is a good way to do things. You are a master of love. Oh haha. What I meant was, it's better that Hinata thinks I'm the jerk who broke her heart. If I explain to her, then she'll know that I still love her, and she will still want to be with me and never move on. If I do this, then maybe she'll stop loving me and not risk her life for me. That still won't help, especially if the two would her kill you first. I guess you're right. I'll explain it to them, and hopefully they will agree with me. If not, then they're just going to give me the beating I deserve anyway. So just shut up and let me do it my way. Idiot. Did you ever think what might happen if you don't give the girl a reason? She is in love with you, dumbass. She could very well take her own life. Hinata won't do that. She puts everyone else's needs before her, and her death would make everyone sad. She would never do something like that. Just let me handle it, okay, asshole? Fine. Oh, look, you're waking up. Have fun, boy. 00000 Naruto woke up, his jaw aching, to the sight of Rokuro and Neji standing over him. His cousin was speaking to the Hyuga prodigy. Neji appeared to be extraordinarily agitated, and only Rokuro's words and restraining hand were preventing him from killing Naruto. All I'm saying is he'd better have a very good excuse for breaking up with Lady Hinata. Otherwise, I will kill him. Look, Neji, we both know he doesn't do things without a reason. Besides, I doubt you could get through me. Anyway, ask him yourself. He's awake. Naruto sat up, noticing he was still at the base of the tree. It had been sunset when he and Rokuro had finished sparring, but now it was dark. The half-moon shone, and Naruto could see perfectly, and the sight that greeted him was terrifying. Neji leaned down, nose to nose with the blonde shinobi. His Byakugan was activated, and the sheer amount of rage in his white eyes unnerved Naruto. He was undeterred, though, and ready to explain himself. Well, Naruto, care to tell us why you have decided to break Lady Hinata's heart? The Hyuga demanded. Never in his life had he been this angry, not even at Hinata during the Chunin exams. The urge to kill was overwhelming. Fine, but you're not going to like it, even if you understand, Naruto replied after he shook off his pain. Niji took a step forward, but Rokuro stopped him with an outstretched arm. Just hurry up, Naruto. I'm holding him back for now, but honestly I'm a little conflicted about it. Naruto sighed, standing up and taking the proffered shirt. Apparently they hadn't saw fit to put his clothes back on him, although the cold night air didn't bother him in the least. The reason I broke up with her was the Nine Tails. He dashed. Since when has the Nine Tails ever been an issue? Niji nearly spat in his face. Lady Hinata has known about it since we were children, and not once has it prevented her from loving you. I know that. Naruto yelled back, his own anger flaring up. Let me finish before you jump all over me. When both shinobi had calmed down enough, Naruto continued his story. The Nine Tails showed me a vision of the future. In it, Hinata died protecting me, because she loves me. If I break her heart now, she won't die protecting me, and she will move on and find someone else. I don't want to lose her, but letting her die is even worse. That's why I can't be with Dash. Naruto was cut off abruptly by a fist connecting with his face. While not nearly as hard as Kiba's punch, it was still strong enough to smash him up against a tree. For the second time that night, he ended up at the base of the same tree, although he wasn't knocked out this time. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Rokuro sniffed. You sound like a complete wuss. Since when does Naruto Uzumaki give up on something? Rokuro hauled him up by the shirt, holding him several inches off the ground. So, he was eye level with Naruto. What makes you think that the Nine Tails is even telling the truth? Naruto's anger flared up again. Why didn't anyone understand that he had to do this? He thought that everyone would be happy that he was sacrificing his life with Hinata, so that way she would live, not be angry way she can be happier later in life. Now let me go. At him for it. Listen, you bastards. I'm doing this for Hinata. She has to have her heart broken, so that Niji stepped up, jabbing several of Naruto's chakra points as he struggled in Rokuro's grip, shutting them down. The muscles in Naruto's arms and legs simply lost all strength, and he gave up trying to struggle. The two older shinobi regarded him with cold eyes before Niji spoke up. You sound exactly like I used to. Naruto's mind stopped for a moment. He had thought exactly the same thing before being shown the second vision. You are giving in to the future as if it were set in stone. Naruto, you are the one who taught me that fate does not exist and that we make our own destiny. So why are you giving in to this so easily? Naruto's body sagged, or at least as much as it could when half of it was already limp. He had been so convinced this was the right thing to do. But after only a few moments of talking with Niji and Rokuro, his resolve had withered away to nothing. But he had to do this. For Hinata. It's not fate if it really will happen. Naruto said softly, I can't lose her. I just can't. If I lost her, then I would go crazy. I would let the Nine Tails out. I would destroy the village. And I can't let that happen. Tears ran down his face freely, and he cried until he simply ran out of tears. Niji and Rokuro simply stood there, their faces impassive as he let out his emotions. The latter still held him tightly, not letting his grip go slack for even a moment. Naruto finally stopped crying, letting the tears dry on his face. His eyes were bloodshot and puffy, and tear marks stained his cheeks. So, do you understand? Do you understand why I have to let Hinata go? To let her go through this pain? Niji nodded his understanding. He didn't like it, but the idea of a depressed cousin was better than a dead cousin. But to everyone's surprise, Rokuro simply shook his head. Naruto went to yell again but was cut off by Rokuro's next statement. It's not your decision to make. He deadpanned. Naruto simply gaped, unable to understand what he meant. Even Niji was confused by his statement. Even if you break Hinata's heart, who's to say she won't still love you? Love can survive anything, Naruto. No matter how much someone hurts you, no matter how they treat you, you won't ever stop loving them. Just look at Sakura and the traitor. You told me stories where he treated her like dirt, and even tried to kill her, but she still loves him. And he did the exact same things to you. So tell me, Naruto, has any of that stopped you from wanting to bring back Sasuke? Naruto shook his head without hesitation. No matter how far Sasuke slipped into darkness, he always tried to bring him back. The only thing that would stop him was death. His eyes widened as he came to a conclusion, but Neji prevented him from speaking. So you understand now. I will tell you something that Lady Hinata told me in confidence, if only to get it into your thick skull, that she won't stop loving you. She told me, during your 3-year training period, that she promised herself that she would never stop trying to be by your side, that she would never stop loving you. And we both know she never goes back on her word. Naruto finished. He smiled weakly at the two older shinobi, finally getting rid of the poisonous thoughts the Nine Tails had planted in him. I've been a complete idiot, huh? Absolutely, Rokuro confirmed, before pulling him into a rough hug. But then again, you wouldn't be the same if you weren't. Rokuro put him on his feet, completely forgetting his chakra points were closed off. Naruto managed to stand for all of 2 seconds before collapsing on the ground, sprawling at Niji's feet. Sighing, the Hyuga Jonin reactivated his chakra points, allowing his chakra flow to return to normal. Naruto stood up, dirty, bruised, and happier than he'd been in 4 days. His normal grin had returned, and he put his head behind his head sheepishly. I guess I should go find Hinata, huh? Yes, I suggest you do that. Kiba has taken her to the Hyuga compound. You are lucky that Lord Hayashi is not present. I doubt he would have let you live from making his daughter cry. Now go. The blonde sprinted away, and both shinobi watched him go. That kid, Rokuro said, shaking his head, is one of the strangest people I have ever met, and one of the thickest. Neji nodded his agreement, before a sly smirk appeared on his own face. Well, he is related to you after all. I guess being weird is something that runs in the family. Rokuro looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Oh, is that so? I guess that means being a peeper runs in the Hyuga family as well. Maybe I should ask Lord Hayashi if he peeped on his wife the same way you peeped on Tenten, and how Hinata peeped on Naruto. Niji's face instantly drained of all color, and he looked at his friend with terror. You wouldn't... Rokuro grinned sinisterly. You know, being unpredictable runs in the family, too. He informed, before disappearing. Neji glanced around furiously to spot the redhead, then took off in the direction of the village, mocking laughter ringing through the forest ahead of him. Naruto stood outside of the Hyuga compound, unable to bring himself to knock on the door. He scolded himself for waiting this long, but when he raised his hand, he simply lost his nerve and turned away again. Right after getting some sense knocked into him, Naruto had come straight to the compound. As he got closer, the resolve he had found slowly started to melt away, replaced by a frantic worry. He desperately wanted to see Hinata, but he couldn't bring himself to knock. He was worried she wouldn't forgive him, or the guards wouldn't let him, or that he wouldn't be able to apologize correctly and she would hate him. All of his fears were completely baseless. But since when did Naruto have fears based in any sort of fact? Cursing himself, he turned to the door and pounded on it firmly, praying that someone would answer quickly before he lost his nerve again. Foolish boy, you are condemning this girl to death. Naruto snorted as the voice rang in his head. I don't care what you have to say anymore, Fox. Even if I do what you told me, Hinata won't give up on me. She would die even if I broke her heart. So why would I do it? He shot back, speaking out loud since he was alone. You idiotic bastard. You're going to give up your life, your village, and your friends' lives, all for this one girl. You're damn right I am, because Hinata is worth it. You're going to be the death of me. This is why I hate humans. Naruto frowned, sensing the pure hatred that radiated at the word human. He smiled inwardly and promised the fox that he would cure it of its hatred someday, which earned only an indifferent sniff and an empty head. Naruto shook his head, wondering at the fox's emotional state, before he was interrupted by the gate opening. Ko Hyuga had been Hinata's bodyguard ever since she was little. At first, he had simply been doing his duty when it came to the young girl. But as the years passed and he grew more attached to her, it became less about duty and more about love. The Hyuga heiress had become a sister to him, and he felt the same way about Naruto that Niji did. Lord Niji has left instructions that you be allowed to enter the estate, the Hyuga said icily. Naruto shivered, feeling the anger towards him in Ko's words. Lady Hinata is in the garden. Naruto quickly walked past him, trying to get away from the cold stare. He was grateful when he turned the corner, but couldn't shake the feeling that Ko was using his Byakugan to track him. He quickly moved through the house, making his way towards the garden Hinata had shown him when he had first visited. Exiting the house, Naruto wandered around the vast garden. In spite of the situation, he couldn't help but marvel at how large and well-maintained the garden was. The path was dotted with flower beds and beautifully maintained trees, and the sheer tranquility of the place calmed Naruto's nerves. Spotting some flowers the color of lavender, Naruto prayed to Niji or Hayashi wouldn't castrate him for this, and moved to gather some. Hinata was sitting at the back of the garden, crying her eyes out. This part of the garden had been her mother's favorite spot, and it always calmed Hinata whenever she was feeling stressed or sad. Not this time, though. This time, she felt as if her heart had been broken. When she had heard Naruto utter the words that she had heard, her mind had been reeling in disbelief. She simply couldn't fathom why he wanted to break up with her. The last 2 weeks had been the best of her life, and Naruto's confession had made her happier than ever. Every time they kissed and touched it felt like a dream, and now she thought that dream had come to an end. When the full impact of his words hit her, her heart had been ripped apart. Breathing had gotten incredibly hard, and if not for Kiba's actions, she would have passed out then and there. But of course, her concern for Naruto had gotten the better of her, and while she couldn't stop Kiba from knocking him out, she had at least stopped him from taking it farther. She still loved him, despite the spiraling depression she found herself in. No matter what happened, she would never stop loving him. While the love she felt for him was unbending and strong, her confidence and will were not. All it took was a single sentence from him, and she was the shy, meek girl she had been before her relationship with him. Millions of doubts ran through her head. Was it because she was weak? Was it because of her body? Did he still love Sakura? This caused her to sink even deeper into her sadness, and even the hours of crying hadn't done anything to dull the ache in her chest. Naruto approached Hinata quietly, unsure what to say. He intended to make things right, to tell her everything, then throw himself at her feet and beg for her forgiveness. But as soon as he saw her eyes and the extreme sadness that shone in them, his entire body froze in guilt. Never in his life had he felt more horrible than he did in that moment. All of the pain he had endured as a child, all of the physical wounds he had endured in his career as a shinobi, even the pain he had felt when Jiraiya had died, none of it compared to this. He couldn't breathe for several moments, and when he finally did, his resolve had died down to nothing. But even so, he pushed forward, determined to stop her tears. Hinata, he choked out, barely getting the words past the lump in his throat. Now Naruto, Hinata whirled around in surprise. She had never expected this, never expected him to come apologize to her. The blow to her self-confidence had made her believe that he broke up with her because it was her fault, not his. She dropped her gaze, turning away from him. What do you all want? She asked, her stutter returning. Naruto's heart wrenched, but he pressed forward, determined to apologize even if she hated him. He walked forward, setting the flowers down on the bench. Can I sit? He asked hopefully, and relief washed over him as Hinata nodded slightly. He sat down on the bench, leaving about a foot of room between the two. Both of them sat in silence, unsure of what to do or say. Hinata thought that she should apologize to him. She knew she had dragged him down, her weakness causing him nothing but trouble. During their mission in the Land of Iron, she had slowed him down and he almost hadn't reached Sakura in time. During their fight with Rokuro, she had been too weak to fight and had gotten captured. She had interfered with his training with his cousin, and that had distracted him. When Shirawaka had shown up, she had been captured so easily. Each time he had to slow down or save her, and her weakness was probably why he didn't want her around. Naruto was trying to work up the courage to admit that he had been a complete moron, and deserved every single beating he had been given, and more. He had been too weak to stop her from getting captured in the fight against Rokuro, and again with Shirawaka and Sanjo. She had almost died against Pain, all because he wasn't strong enough to keep her safe. He wanted to protect her, and he was going to tell her that he would get stronger, so that the future the Nine-Tails had shown him would never come to pass. I'm sorry I was so weak. Both of them stared at each other, stunned. Neither thought the other was weak, and since Hinata had lost her confidence, she couldn't interrupt Naruto to tell him what she really thought. But the blonde had no such qualms about speaking his mind, and he grasped her hand, scolding her softly. "Hinata, you're not weak. Don't ever think that, you hear me?" Naruto shouted, mad at himself for making her think that. "You are one of the nicest people I have ever met, and you're really strong too. Even though you don't have as much chakra as I do, you can keep up with me. And even if you can't do it for long, I bet you could still beat me with your gentle fist thing. So please, don't ever think that." Naruto's shoulders sagged, and he released her hand. "If anything, you should be the one thinking that I'm weak," he mumbled miserably, looking at the ground. "Naruto?" Hinata put her hand on his back, surprised by his sudden change in demeanor. Her own tears had stopped as soon as he had finished complimenting her, and some of her confidence was returning. Her own heart felt a pang of pain as she saw the tears racking his body. "It's okay." She rubbed his back soothingly. "No, it's not. Because I was weak, you were nearly killed. You had to come save me because I wasn't strong enough to beat Pain on my own. Even when I found out you were okay, I still couldn't live with myself. I promised myself that I would train every day so I could get stronger, so I could protect you and everyone else. Even then, it wasn't enough. I couldn't protect you when we fought Rokuro, and I couldn't stop those two Minamoto bastards from taking you." Naruto gripped Hinata's hand again. He clung to it desperately, as if she might disappear if he let go. "If I don't get stronger, if I can't get strong enough, then during the war, you're going to die." Tear-laden blue eyes met Lavender, and Naruto threw his arms around her. "I was so scared when the fox showed me that. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you. So I did what the fox told me, and I almost made a huge mistake." Naruto pulled back from the embrace, his tears gone. He looked deep into her eyes and spoke in a firm, confident voice. "Hinata, I won't ever stop loving you, and I will never give you up if I can help it. But before I do that, please forgive me for being such an idiot, and hopefully we can still be together." Naruto let go of her, sliding off the bench and prostrating himself before her. He clasped his hands together as if he were praying, and it would have been funny if Naruto hadn't been so serious. Hinata was so shocked by his admissions. He thought he was weak for not being able to protect her. To her, he was the very embodiment of strength, not for his skill or his physical strength, but for the strength of his will and heart. He had been alone for most of his life, but he had still been the most positive and relentless person she had ever met, and it was that strength that drew her to him. That and his adorable whiskers. "Naruto, of course I forgive you," she said softly. Naruto looked up, surprised that she had forgiven him so easily. Then he mentally slapped himself, remembering that this was Hinata. "And I promise you, Naruto, I will get stronger too, so that way I can be by your side always. Thanks for forgiving me, Hinata. I know I can be an idiot, but I want to be your idiot." He grinned, pulling her back into a hug, this one loving and tender. Hinata wanted to know what Naruto had seen to make him give up on their relationship, but the hug melted away all of her worries. She would ask him later, but for now, Hinata reached up, caressing Naruto's cheek. Her thumb traced the whiskers on his cheek, and she moved in for a kiss. Naruto obliged, capturing her lips with her own. Sparks flew and shivers ran down both of their spines. They poured all their love into the kiss, and all the pain and sorrow from earlier vanishing as they expressed their devotion to each other in a single moment. They pulled away, leaning their foreheads together and simply looking at each other. They sat together for what felt like minutes, but turned out to be hours. They chatted and laughed as they fixed the holes in their relationship, the ones that Naruto had created. Naruto continued to beat himself up over his mistakes, but Hinata assured him that she forgave him for his stupidity. Naruto pouted at the word, and Hinata giggled at the expression before snuggling closer to him. They were interrupted by a voice that rang out from the back of the garden. "Hinata, it's getting late. You should come inside, and Naruto has to leave so he can rest for his departure. Come on, young lady. I know you can hear me." Hayashi called softly, not wishing to disturb the clan members that were asleep. Hinata's face lit up as she discovered her father was home, and she pulled Naruto along with her to greet him. Her blonde boyfriend was less enthusiastic, wondering if he knew about recent events. His face paled at the thought of an angry Hayashi Hyuga. Niji was scary enough, but her father? The thought sent shivers down his back, and not the good kind. The man in question simply stood on the porch, hands tucked into his sleeves, smiling softly at the sight of his daughter and the man she loved. He actually had heard of the past few hours, but when he had snuck up on them to kill Naruto, he had found the talking and laughing. The blonde had obviously fixed his mistake, so Hayashi let it go. But only this once. "Hello, father. I trust your meetings went well," Hinata asked politely. Even if they were acting more like a family, there was still a certain distance to be maintained. Yes, they did. The Minsmotos have been convicted, and will spend the next 20 years in prison. Hayashi stated cheerfully. The men had threatened his daughter. They got off lightly, as far as he was concerned. "Only 20 years, Lord Hayashi?" Naruto asked through clenched teeth. The mere thought of the kidnappers made his blood boil, but he managed to contain his rage enough to address the man properly. Yes, unfortunately, they managed to avoid life in prison. However, they are no longer allowed in the Leaf Village after their stay, and Sanjo has been replaced as clan head, so there is nothing to fear from them. "I see," Naruto said, his anger subsiding. "Well, I think I should go. I have to leave tomorrow, so I gotta get my sleep or Granny will kill me." Hayashi arched an eyebrow at the word Granny, being used to refer to the Hokage, but he didn't comment. But one subject had come up with the clan elders, and he thought it only fair to inform the object of said discussion. "One moment, young Naruto. I would like to discuss something with you and Hinata. Come with me." The couple shared a confused glance. Neither of them knew what Hayashi might be referring to, but they both followed his retreating form. Curiosity was written all over Naruto's face as they were pulled into Hayashi's office, and while Hinata was just as curious, she managed to hide it better. They sat down on the cushions in front of the low-lying desk. Hinata sat on her shins and feet gracefully, but when Naruto tried to emulate the action, he fell onto his side. After 2 more attempts, much to the amusement of Hayashi and Hinata, Naruto gave up and plopped onto his butt. Now, aside from dealing with the Minamoto clan, the clan elders and I discussed an arranged marriage with another clan. Hinata looked completely surprised by the statement, but Naruto just became extremely angry. Some of the elders thought it would be a good idea to accept one of the many offers from one of the clans, but I refused. I did, however, put forward one name. He is the heir to a very prestigious lineage, and all of the elders agreed wholeheartedly to my decision. "What?" Naruto exploded. "How can you do something like that without talking to Hinata? Did you even think that she might not want to marry him?" The blonde seethed, and only Hinata's hand on his leg kept him from reaching out and throttling the Hyuga clan head. Hayashi betrayed no emotion at Naruto's outburst, but both of the younger children in front of him were shocked when a small smile crossed his face. "Oh, I know with absolute certainty that this young man will be correct for my daughter. After all, she has been in love with him since they were both children." Hinata's eyes popped out of her head, and a moment later Naruto's did the same. Both of them knew what he had just said, but was he actually implying? I put forward Naruto Namikaze as a future husband for my wife, as the only one I approved of for my daughter, and the council was unanimous in its decision. You are the one my daughter is going to marry, Naruto. If you will accept this proposal. Hayashi smirked at the reactions on Naruto and Hinata's faces. Hinata gazed off into space dreamily, and Naruto simply stared at the Hyuga head as if he were insane. What? Naruto shouted for the second time that night. I'm only 16. I can't be married yet. Not that I don't want to be married to you, Hinata. It's just that Naruto continued to babble before he was cut off by Hayashi. Why don't we discuss the details after you return and the looming war has been won? And do not be afraid of marrying so young. It happens to most clan heirs and heiresses. Naruto simply nodded dumbly, as if accepting this line of thinking. Hinata was jerked out of her daydreams, and she turned a deep red as she realized what was happening. The knowledge became too much for her, and with a squeak she fainted. Hayashi gazed at his daughter curiously, before raising an eyebrow at the young man beside her. Naruto quickly assured him that this was a regular occurrence before bowing and showing himself out. Naruto couldn't believe how this day had started. He had passed Rokuro's exam. Nearly given up on the only girl he had ever loved, been beaten senseless, scolded for being so stupid, then beaten again, apologized to his girlfriend, then learned that her father wanted him to marry her. The last thought caused a goofy grin to appear on his face. While he was still young, he had no doubts he wanted to marry Hinata and spend the rest of his life with her. Nothing on earth made him happier than she did, and he made up his mind. He was definitely going to accept that marriage proposal. Even if he had to become related to a bunch of people like Niji, the thought of having a wife made him giddy. Hayashi had just given the blonde shinobi some of the happiest memories he would ever had. Reflecting back on the many times he had been improper around the clan head, Naruto couldn't help but shake his head in wonder. Man, what a weird family. The sun broke softly over the horizon, the early morning clouds scattering the light and pushing away the darkness of night. The only sounds were the mutterings and labors of the construction workers, who were already hard at work finishing the last of the rebuilding. The shopping areas were the last to be restored, since they weren't vital to the village's operation. No one heard these labors, as the only ones up this early were shinobi, specifically a blonde Uzumaki. Naruto leaned up against the gates, impatient to be on his way. After getting a good night's sleep, the blonde had awoken early to get ready. There was no doubt in his mind that he would learn to control the 9 tails, and he was eager to get started. Granted, Naruto wasn't happy about leaving when a war was about to break loose, especially when his friends would absolutely fight to the last breath to defend him, but he knew there was no escaping it, and he wanted to make the best of it. Turning back to the village, he waved impatiently at the 2 figures approaching him. See, Tain Yamato, Guy-sensei, let's go already. I want to master this stupid fox, so I can get back here soon. Yamato let out a sigh, which was only exacerbated by the matching enthusiasm of his partner. Guy flashed a thumbs up at Naruto, calling out his signature nonsense. Ah, Naruto, I see your fires of youth are burning brightly this morning. Are you ready to begin our youthful journey? You bet bushier brow, sensei. I'm going to master the 9 tails. Then I'm going to end this war and bring peace, believe it. Yamato hung his head, wondering what exactly it was that he had done to get assigned to this mission. But deep down, it made a certain kind of sense. Guy was there to provide the muscle if necessary, and he was there to seal the 9 tails if it got loose. Besides, Kakashi was needed for the war effort. The former ANBU was interrupted from his thoughts by a voice behind him. Well, as great as that is, Naruto, I hope you weren't going to leave without saying goodbye to me and Hina? Rokuro asked somewhat heatedly. Naruto's eyes widened and his heart rate sped up. He broke out in a cold sweat at the sight of his cousin and the petite girl that came out of hiding behind him. In truth, he kind of had been hoping he could get away without seeing Hinata. The events in her father's study still rang through his head, and he was completely unsure of what Hinata's reaction might be to the thought of marrying him. All these doubts were pushed to the back of his thoughts as the girl threw her arms around him, knocking him on his butt. "Naruto, please be careful," Hinata cried, unshed tears in her eyes. She buried her face in his chest, unwilling to let go of him at the moment. Even though she didn't want to appear weak, she couldn't help herself. She loved Naruto too much to care. The promise she had made to herself still rang in her head, but right now, she wanted to enjoy their last moments together. "Please don't push yourself too hard, and come back soon, okay?" "You bet, Hinata," Naruto said, trying to calm the girl he loved. He rubbed her back soothingly, small circles in her lower back. "Remember what I promised you, Hinata. I will get stronger, and I'll protect you no matter what." "Okay." Naruto picked himself up, along with the sniveling girl in his arms. Setting her on her feet, he gently tapped her chin, making her look him in the eye. He smiled as he met her gaze. It wasn't his happy grin, or a smile to hide his pain. It was a small, reassuring smile that held his confidence and love for her, and it stopped her tears. She nodded, still sniffling, as Naruto moved around her to greet his cousin. Rokuro pulled him into a rough hug, tears of his own misting his eyes. "You come back safe, you hear me? Otherwise, Hinata's not the only one who's going to be upset, you know." Naruto nodded dumbly. While he knew how to deal with Hinata, he had no idea how to deal with the affection of his only family member. He returned the hug briefly, before Rokuro pulled back and put both hands on Naruto's shoulders. "I know you're going to do great. Here, take the scroll. Practice your taijutsu every day, and go up in weight when you can. Don't try and do it too soon, otherwise you'll just burn out. And remember this, we are all waiting for you to come home. Now get going, knucklehead." Naruto smiled, tears in his eyes. Never had he felt so loved. Hinata came to stand by Rokuro, and at a whispered prompting, the Hyuga nodded and held out her fist, mirroring the pose Naruto had made when he vowed with her blood after her fight with Neji. Naruto's breath caught in his throat at her determined face, and his heart swelled at her words. "I promise, Naruto, I will be strong enough to save you when you see me again. That way, I can save you when you need me," the girl declared. Naruto's eyes popped as a sudden breeze came up, as if to accentuate her words. She looked so beautiful. Naruto moved forward, grasping her hips and pulling her close to him. He captured her lips in a passionate kiss, and she placed her hands on his shoulders and responded in kind. They stayed locked for nearly 2 full minutes, until breaking apart for air. Gasping for air, they leaned their foreheads together, catching their breath before smiling at each other. "I love you, Hinata. I'll be back soon, believe it. I love you too, Naruto, and I do believe you. And when you get back," she whispered something in his ear. No one around heard what she said, but based on the shit-eating grin on his face and the small amount of blood trickling out of his nose, it was probably something good. Naruto was shaken out of his fantasies by a short cough from Yamato. Hinata's promises lingering in his ear, he turned to his cousin for the last time. "Rokuro, I have a favor to ask." Naruto began, his expression grim. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime request." The memories of what the Nine Tails had shown him echoed through his brain, and while he loathed asking this, he had to. "I know, Naruto," Rokuro interrupted, his voice quiet and serious. "I promise, no matter what happens, I will protect Hinata for you, even if it costs me my life." Hinata looked from her boyfriend to his cousin, surprised at the exchange. Red and blue locked for a moment, and before she could say anything, Naruto nodded and turned around, walking away from the village. Guy and Yamato moved to flank him, and the two Jonin looked back over their shoulders before concentrating on the journey before them. Slowly, the 3 figures moved into the distance, disappearing into the early morning fog of the forest. Hinata studied Rokuro with a small frown of worry creasing her forehead. Rokuro eventually noticed the look on her face and responded without taking his eyes off the road. "You think that I shouldn't keep that promise, that I shouldn't give up my life for you or anyone else." Hinata nodded her agreement, having grown used to the redhead's skills of observation. Chuckling softly, Rokuro glanced at her before returning his gaze to the road. Look, I'm a protector. It's what I do. I'm the eldest of the Uzumaki clan, so that means I have a responsibility to my siblings. Turning to Hinata, he gazed deeply into her lavender eyes. I protect my siblings and will lay down my life for any one of them. He put his hand on her head, palm downwards. That includes you now. Hinata gasped, surprised by his declaration. While she had Niji, she had never actually had an older sibling before. Someone to look up to follow their example, to ask for advice from before. Rokuro smiled sheepishly, the Uzumaki grin that she had come to love, before holding up several papers to her. The Hyuga snatched them from him, eyes quickly scanning them, before her mouth gaped in shock, her mouth in a surprised "oh" that was quickly covered by her hand. I did it earlier this week. Think it's a good birthday present? After all, we won't see him for a few months. Rokuro asked nervously. His answer came in the hug, Finn's arms wrapped around his waist. Well, I guess that's a yes. He laughed. Thank you. Thank you for giving him the family he's always wanted. Hinata said softly. Rokuro gently disengaged her arms from his waist, shaking his head. No, I should be thanking you. He leaned over slightly, bringing his eyes level with hers. Thank you for loving him, Hinata. Thanks for always being there for him, even if he was too dense to know. Both newly adopted siblings embraced once more, before they heard snickering around the corner. They both whirled around to see Ino, Sakura, and Tenten peeking around the corner, heads stacked on top of one another. The trio of girls gasped before disappearing, and from the swearing and scuffling, it was obvious they had been standing on one another. Hinata blushed furiously, and Rokuro scowled at the interruption. Moments later, 3 frazzled girls came around the corner, dragging several males with them. Niji, Shikamaru, Choji, Sai, Lee, Kiba, and Shino were all present, in addition to the girls. Why did I have to wake up this early again? Shikamaru whined, being dragged by the collar by Ino. We came to say goodbye to Naruto, but we didn't even do that. What a drag. We all came to say goodbye to Naruto, but the women could not resist a chance to spy on Naruto and Hinata. Shino stated, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Of course we couldn't. Ino squealed. They're just so cute together. Who knew Naruto could be such a romantic? I know. I've known the knucklehead for 3 years, and I've never seen that before. Sakura agreed, but the drama afterwards was like something out of a TV show. Such a happy scene. The medic sighed, and all the girls couldn't help but agree. Ugh, I think I'm going to be sick. Kiba whined, and several of the guys couldn't help but agree. Niji, after getting over his disgust, this romance involved his cousin after all, looked curiously at Rokuro, who was still scowling about the interruption. He was the closest to Niji out of all of their friends, and he had no idea what the Uzumaki heir had shown Hinata. Rokuro, what were those papers that you showed to Lady Hinata? Everyone perked up at the question, looking towards the newest member of their friends group. The redhead sighed, but couldn't keep the grin off his face. I was hoping to keep this a secret from everyone so Naruto wouldn't be the last to know, but I guess it's a little late for that. Rokuro held up the papers, announcing their purpose to the group. I officially changed the records, adopting Naruto as my brother. There was a chorus of congratulations before the group dispersed. The girls dragged Hinata off, intent on grilling her until she told them what she had whispered to Naruto. Niji stalked after them, trying to save his cousin from their machinations. Shikamaru left, looking for a place to take a nap, and Choji followed the lazy shadow user. Lee ran off screaming about improving to impress Guy, and Shino and Kiba walked off in order to go get breakfast. Rokuro was left alone at the gates, reminiscing about the past month before heading off to find Kiba's sister, Hannah. I'll see you soon, little brother. 00000, it's all right. You're safe here. A soft, feminine voice echoed through him, shattering the images of the Nine Tails' hatred. Naruto's eyes snapped open, completely taken aback. Instead of his normal bright blue, one of his eyes was completely black with a solid red pupil. If Naruto could have seen himself in a mirror, he would have noticed the resemblance to his cousin easily. However, he had other things on his mind right now. Standing before him was a beautiful woman, who looked at him through loving eyes. He had no idea who she was, or why she had appeared in his mind, but he had a sneaking suspicion that she had something to do with Nine Tails. Naruto, she began, but he rudely cut her off. Who are you? What are you doing here? And how come you know my name? Naruto asked, releasing his grip on his own head. The Nine Tails' hatred and memories had been so strong, it actually caused him physical pain. That pain was gone, but at the moment he was too occupied to notice. Oh, that's right. You don't know who I am. So, why don't you take a guess, Naruto? She asked, staring at him. Her eyes were completely open and guileless, and she kept silent as he stared at her intently. No way. His eyes opened wider, and he felt the knowledge come crashing down on him. Ah, you figured it out then, she asked with a small smile on her face. You're the Nine Tails' true form, he screamed, pointing at her as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. The redhead stared at him for a moment before bursting out into laughter. She doubled over, clutching at her sides, and this only made Naruto more certain that his assumption was correct. Hey, that's a creepy laugh. What are you trying to do? Trick me, you stupid fox. The redhead's eyes popped out of her head, and she promptly smacked him over the head. Naruto cried out, and he dropped his head, bending over. He held his head as the woman yelled at him. You're wrong, you know. Ow, that hurt. Naruto complained, before the impact of what she just said hit him. Wait, you know. The red hair, the eyes that looked at him with love, the same face that he had. Was she really... Sorry, I just can't stop myself from hitting people sometimes. I was born impatient, so I talk really fast and say weirdsome sometimes, you know? The woman had her eyes closed, and she was rubbing the back of her head in a familiar way. One eye cracked open, before closing after she made her next statement. I try to stop, but when I get excited things just pop out. I hope you didn't get any weird verbal quirks like me. Then, Naruto's body began to tremble. His hands clenched, and tears started forming in his eyes as he frowned, trying to hold back his emotions. Even though he had met others from his family before, he hadn't felt anything this intense. Minato didn't say anything about me? Oh, shame on him, the woman pouted, before smiling at him again. That's right. I am your dash. Naruto leapt at his mother, pulling her into an embrace. His hands encircled her body, pinning her upper arms to her sides. Tears began to run freely down his face as his emotions overwhelmed him. He felt sadness, joy, love, and anger all rolled into one. He was mad that his parents sacrificed themselves and left him alone, sorrow at the thought of all the time they had missed, happiness that he could see her, even if it was just this once, and above all, love for the woman that had brought him into this world. It's just, I've wanted to meet you for so long, you know, he asked, tears soaking into her dress. His eyes slowly faded back to its original blue, the receding black and red taking all of his hatred and anger with it. Kushina got over her shock quickly, wrapping her own forearms around Naruto. You know, huh? You really are my child. After several minutes, Naruto broke the embrace, an expression of childlike glee plastered over his face. There's so much stuff I wanted to ask you if I ever got to meet you, Naruto shouted, his body vibrating with happiness. Sure, ask me anything, Kushina replied, holding up her finger. But first, let me take care of the Nine Tails, okay? As she spoke, Naruto's body within his mind began to move. The Nine Tails' hatred, which engulfed his entire head and shoulder, moved to his chest as he leaned back. He cried out as chains composed entirely of chakra erupted from his body, wrapping around the nine tails and pinning it down. The creature's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized the chakra that was now wrapped around his body. What? This chakra? Is that you, Kushina? The fox asked in wonder. While he hadn't exactly been on the best of terms with his former host, it hadn't certainly been better than being trapped inside of her idiotic brat. However, the fox was denied an answer as Naruto and Kushina ignored him and continued to talk. Inside of his mind within his mind, Naruto sat grinning as he listened to Kushina explain her presence. Truth be told, he didn't really care about why she was here, only that she was. As he examined her, he couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was and how similar her hair was to Rokuro and Karen's. Hey, are you even listening? Kushina whined, her tone very similar to Naruto's own whining. He smiled at having been caught, but he decided to distract her with compliments. It worked with Hinata, so why not his mom? Wow, you're so pretty, Mom. I'm glad I have such a beautiful mother, he gushed. True to his ninja way, Naruto meant every word of it, even if he had originally done it to avoid being hit. Ah, thank you, Naruto, she responded happily, looking him over. Well, it looks like you got your father's hair, but unfortunately you got most of your looks from me. Naruto frowned, wondering what she meant. What are you talking about? I got my looks from you, and you're really pretty, so that must make me handsome. Actually, Hinata says I am. So Naruto was cut off by a squeal from his mother. Oh, you have a girlfriend. Who is she? What's she like? What does she look like? How serious are you? She fired off rapidly, eager to learn every detail. Hinata? Oh, she's great. We've only been together for a month, but I love her, and I'm going to marry her. His mother squealed again, and his face lit up as he described his girlfriend to his mother. She frowned at the mention of her being a Hyuga, but when Naruto finished his description, realization dawned on his mother's face. Oh, she's the heiress. Then you must know her mom Hitomi, Kushina exclaimed. How is she? What is the old girl up to? She stopped as she saw the expression on Naruto's face. The mom's face fell as Naruto informed her of Hinata's mother's death. I see. I'm sorry to hear that. She was always such a kind, beautiful person. Her death must have been hard to deal with. Her face was solemn until Naruto decided to break her out of her thoughts. Mom, your hair is so beautiful. If I had it like Rokuro and Karen, then I would have been really handsome. Naruto exclaimed, contemplating what he would look like with red hair. Rokuro? Wait, Oh, I know. That's Kazumi's son. She cried out triumphantly. How did you meet him? I didn't even know the little sweetheart was alive. And is Karen the girl she was pregnant with? Naruto shrugged. I guess, since she and Rokuro are siblings. I gotta tell you, Mom, having him find me was the best thing that could ever happen. Naruto animatedly told his mother of all the things that had happened with his cousins, but as he began to describe his training, Kushina held up a hand to stop him. Naruto, I love hearing about your life, and I want nothing more than to talk with you all day. But first, I want to tell you the story of how your father and I met. Then we need to suppress the nine tails. Naruto grinned and nodded, sitting down cross-legged as his mother retold the story of how she met and fell in love with his father. Naruto let out a low whistle as his mom finished her story. You know, Mom, a lot of the stuff between you and Dad is so similar to me and Hinata. I wish I could have known how you guys met sooner. Then I could have spotted the similarities. I'm loud, you're loud. Dad was quiet. Hinata is quiet. Dad watched you and admired your strength, and Hinata did the same for me. And it wasn't until both of them jumped in to save us that we fell in love. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. Okay, Naruto, now get ready. It's time for you to do what you came here to do. Kushina gently reminded him. Her son didn't say a word. He just stood up, ready to face the hatred of the Nine Tails again. All it took was seeing his mother, the woman who birthed him and loved him, to remind him what he had waiting for him back home. Naruto recalled the scene at the main gates, and he steeled his resolve for the coming battle. He wasn't leaving without the Nine Tails chakra, no matter what happened, and he wasn't going to fail either. As his vision shifted to the Nine Tails once more, he sprang into action. He had made a promise, and Naruto Uzumaki never goes back on his word. 00000 Naruto sat in the trees for a moment, watching as a midnight-haired beauty took down her opponents left and right, along with his older cousin. Naruto shook his head. A small smile appeared on his face. Hinata was far stronger than she had been before. He could see it in her movements and strikes. Apparently, she had lived up to her promise in the months he'd been away. Not that he expected any less from the girl, who shared his ninja way. Her Byakugan was deactivated, so he decided to choose the perfect moment to come out and surprise her. Even in the middle of a war, and with clones dispatched to every single battlefield, he couldn't resist coming to surprise her himself. The opportunity came in an unexpected manner. Hinata destroyed a Zetsu clone, but as she whirled around to face her next opponent, she was caught off balance. There was nothing the Hyuga girl could do as three swordsmen raised their weapons for the killing blow. Naruto saw that despite Hinata's increase in strength, there was nothing she could do against the sword wielders, and he shot out of his hiding place. Naruto flashed in between the Zetsu clones and Hinata, determined to protect the girl with his life. Not that the enemies would pose much of a challenge. He blocked the sword strokes with his forearms, the dense chakra of Tallied Beast mode halting their descent. Before taking out the enemy, he couldn't resist a snappy one-liner. "Sorry I'm late, babe," he said cheekily, noting the slight blush that appeared on her face as he said this. Chuckling, he turned his focus back to the enemy, his eyes becoming cold. Everything's going to be okay. His strength. The hands and chakra arms holding the sword snapped off the points, and the clones recoiled from the loss of the Naruto heard his name being called out, but he took no notice as he gathered weapons. Two smaller arms grew out of his stomach, and with a cry of rage, Naruto sent all three of the enemy flying, dead before they hit the ground. Another clone rushed him, and he snapped its sword in two before sending it flying with a punch, and leapt over the sweep kick of the next enemy before kicking it in the face, the blow knocking it into the air. Naruto turned back to his girlfriend, a grin growing as he looked at her shocked face. "You okay, Hinata?" Hinata couldn't believe her eyes. He was here. He was here. Her mind simply refused to work properly. The statement just kept repeating itself over and over in her head as she stared at the glowing teenager. As soon as he turned to her and said something, the mantra in her head was broken, and she jumped up, throwing herself at him. "Naruto!" She cried happily. Naruto caught her easily, having been prepared for a reception like this. As he held her in his arms, he mentally sighed in relief. The Nine Tails prophecy still troubled him, and he had been afraid he wasn't going to arrive in time. Holding the girl in his arms banished those thoughts from his mind, and he clutched tightly to her new flak jacket. Hinata snuggled closer to him. She had missed him more than she had thought possible. This had been the first time they had been separated for a long period of time since they had gotten together. She didn't think it was possible to miss someone as much as she had missed him, but apparently it was. The training with Rokuro and her cousin had helped keep her mind off it, but she still missed him terribly. Now that she was back in his arms, everything seemed right in the world. And feeling his arms and chest, she could tell that his training had really paid off, especially in certain ways. "I'm glad to see you too, Hinata." Naruto chuckled. "But we really should get back to the fight. Now that I'm here, you guys dash. Hang on a second." A voice called, interrupting their moment. The two looked around, finding themselves surrounded by several of their allies. Surrounding them were Neji, Shino, Kiba, Rokuro, and a Randall Stone ninja Naruto had been directing before finding Hinata. Each one was dressed in the standard uniform of their own village, and Naruto was only moderately surprised that his cousin had been accepted into the ranks of the shinobi in their village. What somewhat puzzled him was that they all had the same forehead protector, one with the kanji for shinobi etched on it. He filed that away for future questioning, returning his attention to the group. They were all looking at him suspiciously, excluding Shino and the Stone Ninja. Do you guys really think it's Naruto? I mean, he doesn't smell the same, Kiba asked, more than a little uncertain of the blonde's identity. Well, I don't think the fakes can replicate that, Rokuro commented, noting the orange glow. Niji had enough skirting around the issue and stepped directly up to the couple. Are you actually Naruto? Niji asked. His Byakugan detected a change in his chakra, definitely having to do with the chakra cloak surrounding him. If you are, why does your chakra look so different? He's definitely the real Naruto. Hinata piped up, a little annoyed at the interruption. He came to save me. Besides, would a clone just stand there and let me hug it without slipping a kunai between my ribs? He is the real Naruto. Shino spoke, his flat voice betraying just a hint of emotion. He saved me not too long ago, and I've been trying to keep up ever since. Gah, where the hell did you come from? Kiba yelled, nearly falling off his perch on Akamaru's back. I'll have you know, I beat the crap out of your clone just a second ago. The Inazuka responded testily, annoyed by his teammate's sneakiness. Now, Kiba, don't make me tell Hana that you're being an annoying puppy. Rokuro wagged his finger as he mock-scolded the younger boy. He laughed as the dog handler sputtered in indignation about being called a puppy. Relax, kiddo. Now that cavalry has arrived, we can turn this battle around. You bet. Naruto shouted. He pulled away from Hinata, addressing the gathered shinobi. I can sense their hatred, so even the transformation can't hide from me. I have clones on every battlefield. So now you guys don't have to be on the defensive. He was eager to get to the fight, but a wave of negative emotions from the girl behind him made him pause. Hinata, her initial happiness at seeing Naruto subsiding, cursed herself for being so weak. Her confidence was fairly high compared to what it had been, but she still had doubts when it came to her own strength. She felt weak for having Naruto save her, like she was a useless burden to him. Her eyes were downcast as the thought crossed her mind, and a dark aura settled over her. Hey, Hinata, don't be so hard on yourself, Naruto said comfortingly. He made no move to embrace her, since he knew that if he did, he would never let her go. Fighting is kind of difficult when you're holding the love of your life, you know? So he settled for comforting words, even if his arms ached to hold her. You've already saved me twice. I can't let you keep doing that. It's my job to protect you. Cheer up, okay? Everyone knows that you're strong. Even your dad does now. Hinata nodded, feeling his strength flow through him. All of her life, she had looked up to Naruto for his unwavering determination, will to succeed, and belief in his comrades. Today was no exception, and for the brief moment their eyes locked, they could see everything in the mind of the other. Nothing was secret to either of them, and it only strengthened their love more. Hinata was ready to take on anything at all for him, no matter the cost. Naruto cringed inwardly as he saw her new resolve. While he knew that it was the best thing for her, and it made him love her even more, he couldn't help but worry. The Nine-Tails prophecy still had a grip on his mind, and refused to let go no matter how much he trained. He shook off his morbid thoughts, concentrating on the battle as his comrades followed him into the fight. Each one would follow him to the gates of hell itself, and wouldn't hesitate to jump in if it meant saving him. He could only pray that when the time came, he would have the strength to pull the back out. 00000 the time came, and Naruto's body screamed out in protest as he tried to move, tried to fight, tried to do something. But he could only watch in horror as the prophecy slowly unfolded before his eyes, fate decreeing that he hadn't become strong enough to stop it. His promise meant nothing in the eyes of the universe. Naruto's heart leapt into his throat at the Hyuga clan's proclamation, but that was instantly replaced by a cold fear and anger. Didn't they see that he didn't want them to sacrifice themselves? Naruto's thoughts went unspoken, but his mortification only grew as his older cousin, one of his last living relatives, made the same decree. As Hayashi, Niji, and Hinata attempted to protect him from the Ten-Tails, Naruto wanted to scream and rage at the Hyugas that it was his life, and that no one should have to die for him. The vision flashed before his eyes as he dreaded the upcoming moments, but he was powerless to stop it. Blue eyes widened in horror as a flash of midnight hair appeared in front of him. 3 wooden spikes headed directly for him. And utter terror gripped his heart as Hinata interposed herself in between him, and the attack her father had failed to deflect. Naruto tried to move, but his exhaustion and wounds rendered him too slow. The vision the Nine Tails had shown him, the fate that the universe had declared for Hinata once Naruto chose to ignore the warning, was about to come to pass, right in front of his eyes, no less. Just as he was about to scream, 2 voices rang out, announcing their presence. It seems fate hadn't foreseen these 2 young men. Collaboration ninjutsu. Hurricane rotation. As soon as they had spotted the attack, Neji Hyuga and Rokuro Uzumaki had summoned the last vestiges of their strength. They had been working on this in the months after Naruto had left, and the efforts of the 2 best friends had finally paid off. Combining a massive chakra supply and wind nature with the precise chakra control and clan technique of the Hyuga, Rokuro and Neji had created a truly devastating technique. The normal range of the Hyuga's ultimate defensive technique was nearly doubled, and the cutting nature of the wind chakra shredded anything that came into contact with the sphere of energy. If struck by projectiles, the wind would whip them around and send them back at their target, like they did now. Madara and Obito Uchiha ducked in surprise as their beast attack was redirected back at them, then scowled as they realized their targets were completely unharmed. They went back to their discussion, hoping a solution would present itself soon. Naruto sat there, almost willing himself to wake up from this cruel dream. There was absolutely no way that what he had just seen had actually happened. Any moment now, the truth of the situation would descend on his mind, and he would hold Hinata in his arms as she died. Voices shouted at Naruto, but he refused to listen. Tears were running freely down his face, and he felt himself spiraling down into his despair. There was no conceivable way he could continue. Nothing he could do anymore. He had failed smack. Naruto looked up in surprise at the stinging sensation on his face. His eyes widened as Hinata stared back at him, an irritated look on her face. Over her shoulders, he could barely make out a grinning Rokuro and smirking Neji, both of them being praised by Hayashi at their new jutsu. The 10 Tails was being suppressed by the allied forces, but they couldn't last for long without help. But the one thing that held his attention, more than anything else, was the lavender eyes right in front of him. This wasn't a dream, and Hinata was alive. His mind slowly shook off the darkness that had been descending over it, and he nodded to her. A wordless exchange passed between the 2, and the couple clasped hands and stood up. Breaking eye contact, they stepped to the front of the army. "Thanks, Hinata," Naruto said softly, before shouting to the rest of the troops. "Now, let's get this party started." He fired up his tailed beast cloak, feeling the surge of power from his newly cooperative tenant. His Haori billowed out from behind him, and at the same time Hinata's hair began flowing straight up. Vaguely, Naruto could feel all of his friends behind him, supporting him with their presence. Fate was kind to him that day, and thanks to one small change to the present, everything Naruto had imagined in the future seemed within reach. Naruto and Hinata would have a happy life together, destiny be damned. And that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating what-if scenario where Naruto realizes Hinata's feelings early on. We've journeyed through an alternate timeline filled with newfound emotions, stronger bonds, and surprising twists. Imagine how different their adventures would be, the challenges they'd face, and the growth they'd experience together. It's a beautiful thought that reminds us of the power of understanding and the impact of realizing what's right in front of us. Thank you for joining us on this imaginative exploration. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Anime T23 for more intriguing anime scenarios and discussions. Let us know in the comments what other what-if scenarios you'd like us to explore next. Until then, stay curious and keep dreaming.